This happened about 3 years ago, in October. I was working night shifts at a warehouse outside Knoxville, Tennessee. I was exhausted. So when I finally got 6 days off, I decided to disappear somewhere completely isolated. I found a small cabin in the mountains of western North Carolina. 1 bedroom, 1 wood stove, no Wi-Fi, no neighbors for miles. The listing described it as a place for people who wanted complete privacy. That sounded perfect. I booked 5 nights. I left Knoxville around noon on Monday. The first few hours were normal, but the last 8 miles were different. The road became narrow and gravel covered. Trees surrounded both sides. My phone lost signal. Then the GPS suddenly said, "You have arrived." I looked around. There was no other house, no streetlight, nothing. Just 1 small cabin sitting in a clearing. Behind it was an old wooden shed, and beyond that, dense forest. I parked my truck and carried my bags inside. The cabin was clean. There was a kitchen, a small bathroom, 1 bedroom, and a wood stove. I started a fire, made dinner, and for the first few hours, everything felt perfect. At around 9:30 p.m., I went outside to collect more firewood. That's when I heard something. Knock. I froze. The sound had come from behind the cabin. I waited. Nothing. Then, knock. Another few seconds. Knock. 3 knocks. Slow. Deliberate. I looked toward the trees. Nothing moved. I grabbed the firewood and went back inside. I locked the door and told myself it was probably a branch hitting the old shed. At midnight, I went to bed. I fell asleep quickly, but around 2:13 a.m., I woke up. There were footsteps outside, slow footsteps, crunching through wet leaves. They started near the front porch, then moved along the side of the cabin. I stayed completely still. The footsteps stopped beneath my bedroom window. Then I heard something scrape against the glass, very slowly, like a fingernail moving across the window. I didn't move. I didn't even breathe properly. After about 30 seconds, the footsteps continued. They moved around the back of the cabin, then disappeared. I stayed awake until sunrise. The next morning, I checked outside. There were footprints in the mud, boot prints. They started at the tree line, walked directly toward my bedroom window, stopped there, then continued toward the old shed. I followed them. The shed door was slightly open. I was almost certain it had been closed the night before. I pushed it open. Inside were old tools, a chair, and some rotten pieces of wood. Nothing else. I turned around, and that's when I noticed something carved into the wooden door. 3 words. "Don't sleep here." I took a picture, then called the property owner. No answer. I left a voicemail. 20 minutes later, my phone buzzed. A text message. It was from the host. It said, "Did you open the shed?" I stared at the screen. I hadn't mentioned the shed. I replied, "Yes." "Why?" The typing indicator appeared, then disappeared, then appeared again. Finally, another message arrived. "Stay inside until I get there." I immediately called him. No answer. About an hour later, I heard a vehicle approaching. An old pickup truck came up the gravel road. A man got out. He looked around 60. Gray beard, heavy jacket. He walked toward the cabin carrying a flashlight. I opened the door. He stopped, then looked directly at me. He asked, "Did you hear knocking last night?" I said yes. His expression changed. He looked toward the forest, then back at me. "Did you hear footsteps?" I said yes. He nodded slowly, then said something that made no sense. "Then he knows you're here." I asked him who he was talking about. He didn't answer. Instead, he asked me to show him the shed. We walked behind the cabin. He looked at the carving, then immediately stepped back. I asked him what was wrong. He said, "That wasn't there last week." I asked him when he had last been here. He looked confused. "Last week?" I nodded. He stared at me, then said, "I haven't been here in almost 4 months." I suddenly felt cold. I showed him the rental listing on my phone. He looked at the screen. His face went pale. Then he said, "That's not my listing." I thought he was joking. He wasn't. He told me he owned the property, but he had never rented the cabin online. He didn't use a lockbox, and he hadn't given anyone the code. I asked him how the cabin had been opened. He didn't know. Then I noticed something above the front porch, a small black camera. I hadn't seen it when I arrived. The owner hadn't installed it. He reached up and pulled it down. There was a memory card inside. He looked at me, then said, "Don't watch this here." We went inside his truck. He inserted the card into his laptop. Hundreds of video files appeared. Most were recorded at night. The first video showed the cabin empty. Then we saw something. A man appeared from the forest. He walked onto the porch, stopped outside the bedroom window, and stood there for almost 2 hours. The next video showed him carrying a chair. He placed it beneath my bedroom window, then sat down, just watching. The date was 4 nights before I arrived. The owner opened another file. This time, the man was inside the cabin. He walked through the kitchen, opened cabinets, looked through drawers, then walked into the bedroom. He stood beside the bed and looked directly into the camera. I felt my stomach drop because the camera wasn't in the bedroom. It was outside, which meant there was another camera inside. The owner suddenly closed the laptop. He looked at me. "We're leaving." I asked why. He said, "Because whoever installed these cameras doesn't want to watch the cabin." He paused. "He wants to watch the people inside it." We got out of the truck, but before we could reach the cabin, I heard something. 3 knocks. Knock, knock, knock. This time, the sound wasn't coming from the shed. It was coming from underneath the cabin. The owner looked at me, then whispered, "There's a crawl space under the kitchen." We went inside. He moved the table. There was an old wooden panel underneath it. He lifted it. Cold air came from below. He shined his flashlight down. There was a ladder. And beneath the cabin, something was moving. We both froze. The owner whispered, "Don't make a sound." Then we heard it. A slow, dragging noise, coming closer. The flashlight shook in his hand, and then a man's voice came from the darkness below, very quietly. "You're not supposed to be here." To be continued. The voice came from beneath the cabin. "You're not supposed to be here." For several seconds, neither of us moved. The property owner slowly lowered the wooden panel. Then he grabbed my arm. Back door. We moved through the kitchen. But before we could reach it, the door handle moved. Someone was outside. One slow pull, then another. The owner immediately locked the deadbolt. We stood there silently. Then a man's voice came from the porch. "Everything okay?" It was calm, almost friendly. I recognized it. It was the same voice from the phone messages, the fake host. The owner looked at me. He put one finger against his lips. "Don't answer." The man outside knocked 3 times. Then he said, "You forgot something." Something slid underneath the front door. A photograph. I picked it up. It showed me standing beside my truck on the afternoon I arrived. The picture had clearly been taken from the forest. I turned it over. Written on the back were 6 words. You weren't supposed to open the shed. The owner stared at it, then whispered, "He's been here before." I asked him what he meant. He told me that other people had rented cabins in the area. Some reported hearing footsteps. Some said their doors were unlocked during the night. Others said they felt like someone was watching them, but nobody had ever found the person responsible. Then we heard footsteps outside. The man was walking around the cabin. Slowly. He stopped beneath the bedroom window, then moved toward the back. The owner whispered, "We can't stay here." He pulled me toward the crawl space. I didn't want to go down there, but there was no other way out. He opened the panel. We climbed down. The crawl space was larger than I'd expected. The air smelled damp. Our flashlight beams moved across the dirt floor. Then we saw it. A mattress, blankets, empty food containers, water bottles, a small battery-powered lantern. Someone had been living underneath the cabin. Recently. The owner walked farther inside, then stopped. I almost walked into him. There was a wall covered with photographs. Dozens of them. Cabins, cars, people arriving, people sitting on porches, people carrying luggage. All photographed without knowing. Then I saw a familiar picture. Me. Standing beside my truck. Another photograph showed me eating dinner inside the cabin. Another showed me sleeping. I stared at it, then realized something. The photograph had been taken from inside the bedroom. The owner looked at me. "There's another entrance." He pointed toward the far wall. A narrow tunnel disappeared beneath the trees. Whoever had been living there could enter and leave without using the cabin. Then something fell behind us. We turned. A metal cup was rolling across the dirt. Neither of us had touched it. The owner whispered, "He's down here." We switched off the flashlight. Darkness. Complete darkness. Then we heard breathing. Not ours. Someone was standing somewhere in the crawl space. I felt the owner's hand grab my shoulder. We slowly moved toward the tunnel. The breathing stopped. Then footsteps started. 1, 2, 3. Coming toward us. We ran. The tunnel was narrow. Branches scratched against my jacket. I could hear someone behind us. We climbed through an opening and came out behind the shed. The owner pulled me toward his truck. We ran. Then something happened. The truck wouldn't start. He tried again. Nothing. The man had disabled it. We heard a branch snap behind us. The owner whispered, "Run!" We ran toward the gravel road. I didn't look back. Neither did he. We reached the road and kept moving until we finally got a cell signal. The owner called the sheriff. Within 40 minutes, deputies arrived. They searched the cabin, the crawl space, the woods, the shed. They found the hidden room. They found the cameras. They found the photographs. And they found something else. A notebook. Inside were names, dates, vehicle descriptions, arrival times, departure times. At least 14 people had been documented. Some had stayed for one night. Some for a week. The notebook contained information about their routines. When they cooked. When they went hiking. When they went to bed. When they left the cabin. The person wasn't simply watching them. He was studying them. The deputies also found an old sleeping bag deep inside the woods. There was food beside it. Fresh food. Which meant the person hadn't gone far. He was still somewhere nearby. The sheriff asked me to describe the man I'd seen on the camera. I couldn't. His face was never visible, always turned away, always covered by darkness. But there was one thing I remembered. His boots, heavy black work boots. the same tread pattern as the footprints outside my bedroom window. The police searched the surrounding properties for weeks. They never found him. The fake rental listing disappeared. The phone number stopped working. The website disappeared completely. I eventually went back home. I tried to forget everything. For several months, I almost succeeded. Then one morning, I received an email. No subject, no name, just one photograph attached. I opened it. It was a picture of the cabin, taken at night. The lights were on. The curtains were closed, and there was a figure standing behind the bedroom window. I zoomed in. My blood went cold, because I knew that cabin was supposed to be empty. I checked the file information. The photograph had been taken 3 days earlier. Then I noticed something in the bottom corner. A vehicle, a black pickup truck. The same truck the property owner had used. I called him immediately. He answered. I asked if he'd been back to the cabin. He said no. Then I asked him about the truck. There was silence. Finally, he said, "My truck has been sitting in my garage for months." I didn't know what to say. Then he asked me something. Did the email come from the same address as before? I checked. It had. And then he said something I'll never forget. "Don't reply." I asked why. He said, "Because if he knows you received it." He stopped. I asked, "Then what?" He said, "Then he knows you're still thinking about him." I never replied. I never returned to that part of the country, and I haven't stayed in an isolated cabin since. But sometimes, late at night, I still think about those photographs, especially the ones taken inside the bedroom, because I keep wondering, how long had that man been standing there? How many nights had he watched people sleep? And how many people left that cabin without ever realizing someone had been underneath their floor? The police never found him. The cabin was eventually sold. The rental listing never returned. But about 6 months after everything happened, I received one final message. No words, just a photograph. It was taken from across a street. It showed the front of my house, and in the corner of the picture, partially hidden behind a tree, was the same black pickup truck. I immediately called the police. They searched the area. They found nothing. No truck, no person, no camera, nothing. Maybe it was a coincidence. Maybe someone had taken an old photograph. Maybe I was simply paranoid after everything that happened. That's what I tell myself. But there is one detail I can't explain. The photograph was taken at 2:13 a.m., the exact same time. I had first heard the footsteps outside the cabin, and that's why, even now, whenever I hear 3 slow knocks at night, I don't open the door. I don't look outside. I turn off every light, and I wait. Because sometimes, the safest thing you can do when you're alone is pretend you're not home.